This is the story of a man who once had nothing except fear and exhaustion. He had no savings, no strong education, and no belief that his future could change. Every day felt the same, and every night passed with heavy thoughts. He believed life had already chosen his path and that effort would not make a difference. Then he discovered one small habit that slowly transformed everything. Waking up at 5 in the morning did not make him rich in one day, but it gave him control over his time. In 90 days, his thinking changed, his strength changed, and his chances in life began to grow. In a small town where factories worked day and night, there lived a 32-year-old man named Thomas. He worked as a night security guard in a large warehouse. Every evening at 8 o'clock, he went to work, and every morning at 6, he returned home exhausted. His salary was small and only enough to survive. He lived in a tiny one-room apartment with broken furniture and weak lights. His clothes were old, and his shoes were worn out. But his greatest problem was not poverty. It was the feeling that his life was trapped in one place and would never move forward. Each morning, Thomas walked home while the town slowly woke up. Through open windows, he saw families eating breakfast and children preparing for school. He watched men in clean shirts leaving for office jobs and wondered if that life would ever be his. He had tried to apply for better work, but his education was not enough. After long night shifts, he had no energy to learn new skills. His mother called every week, asking when his life would improve. Thomas always answered, soon, but inside he felt lost and afraid. He worked hard every night, yet his future remained exactly the same. One cold morning in November, Thomas received a phone call that shook him deeply. His sister told him their mother had collapsed and was taken to the hospital. Fear rushed through his body, and his heart felt heavy with worry. He traveled back to his village on the first bus, staring out the window in silence. When he arrived, he saw his mother lying weak in a small clinic bed. The doctor said stress and exhaustion had caused her to faint. She needed rest, better food, and medicine they could not afford. Thomas held her hand and felt the pain of his helplessness. That night, Thomas stayed beside his mother long after she fell asleep. He looked at her tired face and remembered how hard she had worked all her life. With a weak voice, she asked him not to waste his future the way she had wasted hers. Her words cut deeply into his heart. For the first time, Thomas felt angry, not at the world, but at himself for accepting a life with no direction. Before sunrise, he stepped outside the clinic and breathed the cool morning air. The village was quiet, and birds were beginning to sing. In that moment, Thomas made a promise that his life would change. On the bus back to town, Thomas noticed a well-dressed man sitting across from him, reading calmly in the early morning light. He recognized him as Mr. Chun, a successful businessman in the city. Curious and brave, Thomas asked why he was awake so early. Mr. Chun smiled and said that mornings were his secret weapon. He explained that the quiet hours before sunrise were the best time to think, plan, and build a better future. Thomas listened closely as hope slowly entered his heart. For the first time, he believed that time itself could become the tool that would rescue him from his struggle. Mr. Chun asked Thomas about his daily routine and listened carefully to his answers. When Thomas explained that he worked all night and slept during the day, Mr. Chun nodded with understanding. He said that living opposite to the world was the reason Thomas felt trapped. While others were building careers and learning skills, Thomas was sleeping through the most important hours of the day. Mr. Chun explained that success did not come from working harder at the same job but from using time wisely to prepare for something better. Thomas felt uncomfortable, but the truth opened a door he had never seen before. Mr. Chun then shared a simple but powerful plan. He told Thomas to change his sleeping schedule and protect 2 hours every morning for self-improvement. The first hour would be for learning a skill that could increase his income. The second hour would be for strengthening his body and mind through exercise, reading, and planning. Mr. Chun warned him that this routine would be painful at first and that his body would fight against the change. However, he promised that if Thomas stayed disciplined for 90 days, his habits would transform and his future would look completely different. Thomas felt fear and excitement at the same time. Before leaving the bus, Mr. Chun wrote his phone number on a small card and placed it in Thomas's hand. He told him to call only if he was serious about changing his life. That evening, Thomas stared at the card for a long time. He had never followed through on any plan before, and doubt filled his mind. But he remembered his mother's tired eyes and her wish for him to succeed. With shaking fingers, he made the call. The next day, for the first time in years, Thomas was awake during daylight and met Mr. Chun at a small cafe to begin his journey. At the cafe, Mr. Chun drew a simple picture of a house and explained that Thomas's life had no strong foundation. He said the early morning hours were the time to build that foundation while the world was quiet. 2 hours every morning could slowly change everything if used correctly. Mr. Chun showed Thomas how these hours added up to many extra days each year that most people wasted sleeping. Thomas was shocked by the numbers and began to understand how much time he had been losing. For the first time, he saw that time itself could become his greatest tool instead of his greatest enemy. Mr. Chun created clear rules for Thomas to follow. He said waking up at 5 in the morning was not optional and could not be skipped, even on weekends. He also warned Thomas that sleeping late would destroy the entire plan. Rest was important, but discipline was more important. Mr. Chun explained that the first week would feel like punishment and the mind would try to create excuses. However, after several weeks, the body would adjust and the habit would feel natural. Thomas realized this challenge was not just about waking up early. It was about proving to himself that he could keep a promise. The next morning, Thomas's alarm rang at 5 o'clock, and his body refused to move. His muscles felt heavy, and his eyes burned with sleep. Every excuse filled his mind, telling him to rest longer. But he remembered his mother's words and Mr. Chun's challenge. Slowly, he stood up and sat at a small table with his phone. He began watching free lessons about basic accounting and computer skills. After 1 hour, he forced himself to walk outside for exercise and fresh air. That morning felt painful and lonely, but something inside him felt proud for the first time. The first week was the hardest period Thomas had ever experienced. His body ached from lack of sleep, and his mind stayed cloudy throughout the day. At work, he felt tired and quiet, and nobody understood why he was waking so early. Some people laughed at his effort and told him it would not last. Still, Thomas continued. Every morning, he learned a little more and moved his body a little longer. By the second week, his breathing felt stronger and his thoughts became clearer. Slowly, the routine stopped feeling like torture and started feeling like a personal mission he refused to obey. After 1 month, Thomas noticed real changes. The lessons he studied began to make sense, and he could use computer programs with confidence. His morning walks turned into a time of peace and reflection. He felt different from others because he was awake while the streets were quiet and the sun was rising. His body became healthier, and his mind became sharper. People at work began to notice his new energy and focus. Thomas felt proud, not because of praise, but because he knew he had earned every small improvement through effort and consistency. For the first time, he believed his life was moving forward. During the 3rd month, Thomas decided to use his new skills at work. He created a simple system to organize warehouse inventory and track supplies more clearly. His supervisor was surprised by how useful and easy the system was. Word quickly reached higher managers, who wanted to know how Thomas learned these skills. When he explained his morning routine, they were impressed by his discipline and determination. Thomas felt nervous but hopeful. For years, he had been invisible at work, but now people were seeing his value. The small habit of waking early had quietly prepared him for this important moment. On the 87th day of his new routine, Thomas was called into the office. The manager told him the company needed someone who understood both the warehouse and basic accounting. They offered him a new position with daytime hours and double his old salary. Thomas stood in silence, unable to believe what he heard. Only 3 months earlier, he had felt trapped and hopeless. Now he was being trusted with responsibility and growth. He accepted the job with gratitude and called Mr. Chun immediately. When Mr. Chun heard the news, he said this was only the beginning and warned Thomas never to abandon his morning habit. 1 year later, Thomas's life looked completely different. He had become a respected worker and earned enough money to bring his mother to live near him. She received proper medical care, and their home was warm and comfortable. Thomas still woke up at 5 every morning, not because he had to, but because those hours had become sacred to him. He used them to learn new programs, read business books, and plan his future. When co-workers asked why he still woke up so early, he smiled and said that success was not a destination but something he practiced every single day. Thomas's story proves that change does not come from waiting for luck but from using time with purpose. The quiet hours of the morning hold power because the world is silent and the mind is clear. Anyone can choose to wake earlier and build a better future step by step. You may not become rich overnight, but you will become stronger, smarter, and more disciplined. The difference between failure and success is often a simple decision made each morning. If Thomas could transform his life with no money and no support, then anyone can begin today. Tomorrow morning is not just another day. It is a new beginning.